I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods Volcano Block. Now, last episode, we went after one of the ingredients for the All the Mods star, and we got it completed, and that required pneumatic craft. Well, not too much pneumatic craft, but just enough in order to get the item done. Now, today, there's a few other things that we need to prep up in order to complete this All the Modium star, and most of the items we have access to. However, there are a few things that we're going to need to do, including the matter condenser, that are going to take a little bit of time in order to produce, and hopefully we can create methods to speed this up. Now, just so I'm not confusing and you can kind of follow along and understand the kind of progress that we're making, these are the items that we need to make. Ignore the data models down here, but we're going to need a Philosopher's Fuel, Dragon Soul, Nether Star Block Pulsating, we're going to need the Wither's Compass, a Petric Star, a Nexium Emitter, and then the Improbability Probability Device. And then, of course, we're going to need Unobtainium, the Awaken, which we've already produced, and then the Oblivion Shard, and then Creative Essence, and then, of course, a Dimensional Seed. These are all of the things required, of course, with Nether Stars that are going to be needed. Now, each one of these individual items, however, have a ton of different processes that need to take place in order to make each part. So, for example, the Oblivion Shard is going to require the Spirit mod, which we might get into a little bit today. That way we can start working on this, because I think the production of the actual star itself, the shard, is actually not too much. However, there is a bit more from this mod Spirit that we're going to need for the Dimensional Seed, and this requires a ton of prepping because all of these individual components need to be made for this, including the things that are needed to make all of these miniature portals. So we got to keep that all in mind. But to start off, there are a few other things, like I said, that do take a little bit of time that are outside of this range that we need to take a look at. One being a singularity. We need to be able to produce a singularity, and out of all of these items here, this is probably the hardest thing to make, as we've already produced pretty much everything here except for the Tesla coil, which in my opinion would be one of the hardest items in this pack to get, as you'd have to go entirely through immersive engineering in order to get it. But it's a simple villager trade, so we should be able to get it simply from a villager trade. Probably going to be a random amount maybe that we have to kind of run through here, and we have to do just enough of immersive engineering in order to get some treated wood, which honestly we don't even really need immersive engineering to do this. I don't think 100%. Yeah, no, we can probably just do it with thermal, because thermal has a way of getting treated or getting creosote oil, which is how you get treated wood. Now, that's aside the point. We need to get this matter condenser up and running. And that is the thing I want to make, is a singularity. And I believe for this, you need a 64K storage component of some type. And we're going to need to use a sink. And hopefully I can go ahead and get a sink made up. And I think I'm going to use integrated dynamics, similar to how we used integrated dynamics for our fizzle fuel setup, our fizzle fuel reactor or fission reactor. I want to try and set that up here as well. So we're just going to need item interface, or sorry, we're going to need a fluid interface. I think I should have a fluid interface. Yes. And then we're also going to need a fluid exporter, which should be over here. There's the items. The yellow is the fluid. And so we're going to, set up an exporter because we're going to pull from the network. So let's go ahead and simply get that crafted up. But the fluid exporter, this should be fast enough, because instead of sending items to this, in order for it to work with, I believe we can send fluids into it. And so this is going to kind of condense all of the ingredients that we're going to send to it. And I'm going to do that up here because we can just directly tap into our power. Actually, I don't know if this actually requires any power now that I think about it. We can put this anywhere. Let's go ahead and put it down into our text section over here, right here in the middle. And we can add it to our assembly lines. And let's go ahead and just do it down here. So this should be a pretty simple process. We're going to put this in here, and then we're going to set this to condense into matter balls, which we're going to need eventually, but we need to condense into singularities. Now this says it needs 256,000 items in order to do this. So maybe we can't do this with a 16K component. We'll have to see, because I know you can make a 256K component. It used to be 64. I don't know if that has changed. We'll find out whenever we start to send these ingredients to this. Hopefully it does allow us to send fluids still, because this mod has changed over time. So we'll call this our network, and then we'll use a fluid exporter. And then that's going to export out into this. And then we just need to say export all fluids. And you can see it is functioning. So what we're then going to need to do is pop in here and just adjust the fluid transfer rate. And there we go. We have tons of fluid going in, but notice it doesn't necessarily speed this up. So that is something that you have to keep in mind. I believe the matter condenser has an input limit per side, I think. And that does appear to be the case, because increasing that doesn't really seem to affect this in any ways. I was hoping it would, but of course, taking a look here, it's not really affecting it too much. So we just need one singularity out of this. And so that is going to build up, I believe, to 256 items, 1,000 items, or 1,000 fluids in this particular case. And I'm just going to let that run while we start working on some of the other things. But this is definitely something to keep in mind. And I think what I'm also going to need to do, because we're going to need matter balls, is I'm just going to set up the same thing. I'm going to place another one of these matter condensers, because they're not too difficult to make, by the way. And then we're going to do a 64K drive again. And then I'm just going to place one up here, and we're going to connect in another exporter to this, and it's going to be producing matter balls. So with the exporter connected here, this is now sending it to this, and this only needs 256, and so this will produce matter balls quite efficiently. And matter balls, I do believe, are used in one of these, because I remember seeing it. I just can't remember which one. That's the kind of thing with this. Oh, it's used for these. So the 256 million mega storage component. These things right here. As you can see, matter balls are basically the only component that's relatively difficult to obtain through this multi-craft. This thing is quite the crafting recipe. So the spirit mod. Yes, now that we have all of this worked up, the spirit mod is what we're going to be diving into. And this mod may seem very simple in its function. As you can see, there's not a whole lot here. But this is utilized a lot, and its crafting ability is what's used a lot in this particular mod pack. So some of the things that we're going to need to make a bunch of is this soul powder, I believe, because we're going to need these compressed soul blocks, and we're going to be using this to make soul steel. Now, you can't really see because of the fire, and you can't really rotate this this window here, but we can hover over this and see the items that are needed. So notice, to be able to make a soul steel block, we're going to need compressed soul powder and compressed soul sand in order to make this, and it gets lit on fire, and then we drop iron on top of it. And this is going to consume the blocks in that area, and you're going to end up getting soul steel in its place. Now, to be able to get this soul powder, what we need to do, which is the first step into this mod, and if you're looking for an introduction, there is an introduction right here in the Getting Started tab that talks a little bit about spirit. But what we're going to need is just a simple soul sand, and then we just light it on fire, and we take some glowstone, and we toss the glowstone in, and in return we get soul powder. Or we can take a glowstone block, and we'll get 8 of them instead of 2. So it really depends on your convenience factor, what you kind of want, but you're going to end up getting, I believe, more of the soul powder if you do it in individual form. No, it's actually exactly the same. Yeah, this is just more efficient if you do it in the block form. So what we can do is just simply toss all of this in, and you'll notice it's going to go in. So is it going to be in our best interest to automate this? Well, potentially. Because I believe this is a recipe that's used in quite a few things, and so having access to it might be a good idea. Now, in order to automate this, let's go ahead and think about this in simple terms. We are going to need an exporter, and what I want to do is I want to export out, and I want to send this into an ender chest, and I want this ender chest accessible with modular routers. So let's go ahead and break this real quick, and then we will get this set up with some basic blocks here placed on top. And so on top of this, I want a modular router that is going to basically pull the items out of an ender chest, this particular ender chest that we're going to have sent glowstone into here, glowstone blocks. So this is going to be pulling. So we'll set up a puller module, and that's going to pull from the back. And anything that goes in here should just immediately go here. So for example, if I put that in there, we're going to see the glowstone is filling up. And then we're going to want a dropper module to just simply drop these items that are inside this buffer. We want them to drop down here. And so if I break this, we should notice this is dropping straight down. That's exactly what we want. So let's go ahead and take this out for right now. No, actually, let's leave this in because I do want this redstone controlled. So let's set this to a redstone mode so I can put a lever on here to turn it off. So there we go. That is now turned off because it's in redstone low mode. Perfect. Now we do need a vacuum module to be able to pick up the result. And that result is going to be this powder that we need. And so in this particular case, we are going to make sure it's pulling from the down, and then we're going to set this to whitelist and make sure it's only picking up the soul powder. And that is basically this whole thing in a nutshell. And I think it will reach, we'll be able to see, this goes up to 6 blocks. So I think it does consume that area within the 6 blocks of that space. So only one way to test, and that is to turn it on. And then let's see. Does it work? And as you can see, it does work. Now, of course, we are going to need some speed upgrades in this particular module itself. This is probably the most important, and probably some stack upgrades, because those are also going to be very, very important for this particular setup. So, perfect. So now we have this, and then we just need to send this into our white ender chest, and we can do that through the back. Ender chest. We can go ahead and craft one. This is why just having the auto crafting has been so nice. And there we go. And then we'll just need a cinder. Man, all the things that you can do. All the things that you can do with this. It is so nice. Modular routers is just handy for just about everything. So we're going to send this to the back of the machine. And as you can see, that has now been stored in there. And then we just need to simply set up a drawer in our drawer network for this. Of course, we just need to finish things up and put the export bus right here. So, and just like that, we just need to place some glowstone blocks in here, and that's going to start to fill this up with glowstone blocks and make sure we have a nice supply there. How cool is that? Oh my goodness, man, that block down here that makes the sound is kind of scary sometimes. A dragon in a jar. Jeez. Now, to be able to make the iron, which is going to be used for the majority of all of these crafts, this is the whole thing we're making, is basically this soul steel ingot, which we also make the soul steel block. We're supposed to be able to make the soul steel block immediately, but apparently I can't get this to work, and I feel like I've experienced this before in like all the mods 8, and I don't really remember exactly what my fix was for it. But take a look here. So this is how it's supposed to work. We place down our soul powder blocks, and then we take a regular soul sand and we put it in the middle, and then we ignite this with flint and steel, and then we just simply take ourselves a piece of iron and we toss it in, and it takes a minute, right? And then after that couple of seconds, it consumes the block, and then it gives us the ingot, right? That's how it's supposed to work. Now for the compressed block. So if we take a look at the recipe for the compressed block, the way that I would understand this is it says it needs 4 compressed soul powder blocks placed in this formation, and then in the middle block that's lit on fire is a compressed soul sand. That's what my brain comprehends. So inside of this, I have this exact thing set up, and this is a 1 times compressed soul sand. This is what I would call a compressed soul sand, very similar to how this works. So whenever I place this in and I light this, we're supposed to be able to throw an iron block in here, and it's supposed to do the same operation, but it doesn't do anything. And then it just fizzles out. So I'm kind of confused. Now you might think, oh, well, this is probably picking up that item, but it's not. I can put this really anywhere, and it shouldn't, because that's whitelisted on what it's actually picking up. So I'm kind of confused. Hopefully I can figure this out. So this is the strangest like recipe thing I think I have ever figured out. But to be able to get this, you need to search up compressed soul sand, find the facade for compressed soul sand, and this might be the only way to get it to work, and then find the recipe that is hidden from JEI of the compressed soul sand block that we need from Spirit, and we find that, well, the soul sand compressed block needs to be converted into the compressed soul sand. Wow, that is a lot. But as you can see, that doesn't necessarily work. But I think maybe if we have a crafting grid, and we place this directly in the center of the grid, you can see we can then pull out the actual compressed soul sand blocks, And then that allows us to make this. So if you're experiencing this problem, well, it's now solved for you because that is what you have to do. That is quite the challenge of not necessarily the mods, but because of the way the pack is currently configured. Maybe that'll be fixed in a current update, as this is definitely a problem. So now with this figured out, we see the compressed soul sand here. Now we can go ahead and toss this in, and you'll see it will work, and it should consume the blocks, thus giving us a full block, saving us the process of doing this 9 times over and over again. So now that we have this, basically we can kind of shut this off. I think I might have enough of the soul material because we only need 4 of these soul steel blocks as of right now. However, this mechanic is going to be used again when we go to craft this, and when we also go to craft the portals. So these miniature portals require us to have these materials, all of these compressed materials, but also they require these ender infused teleportation cores, which require all of these items set up in this particular fashion. Now, one thing I want to note that a couple of you guys have pointed out to me is that the direction matters. So you got to keep that in mind. The top left is basically the north face, I do believe, and then the bottom right is going to be the south face. And I believe in some of the recipes, whether I know it doesn't say it, but apparently it does matter what direction certain things are facing. So just like this, we're about to have all of the ingredients, at least for one of the shards, as we only really need 4 of these blocks, and then we need a little bit of IC2 stuff. So yes, the Oblivion shard, we just need Insanium blocks, which is just going to be 2 of them. That's pretty straightforward. And then we need this thing right here. Now, we are going to need plasma cells, and we're going to need a couple of these. So I do need to make myself a plasma fire from IC2, and so we do need to dabble a little bit more into this particular mod. But as you can see, we do have plenty of UU matter for this. Now, this is going to be my first little dabbling into, well, iridium. So this iridium right here is made with the UU matter, and I believe it's the only way we can obtain it. And we're going to use this to make these iridium stones. It does need an iridium plate. So there's the plates, and then of course the stone. And I think this is this regular stone this is needing? No, this is like special stone. And forgive the lag that's happening in here, because that is going to happen, unfortunately, because I think something to do with applied energistics. But here we go. And there's the iridium stone. Now, to make this, it just requires an induction furnace. Yeah, just basic machine parts that we already have plenty of. Now, here's the part that I don't know. I don't know what tier this particular machine is. It is yellow, but does that mean that it works with this? I'm kind of afraid. I don't want it to blow up, but I don't think it'll break anything. If we hook up the iron cables up to this, I wonder if it does accept this particular power. It may not. Oh, it may not do any power. That's kind of odd. I don't even see a power source going to it. But what we need is some of this, right? I think it's 10 of it. 10 of this goes into the plasma fire and turns into a plasma cell from a regular cell. And this is actually going to be used for a couple of recipes for the Allthemodium star. So if I go ahead and put a cell in here and 10 of these, and we show the recipe, it does require some amount of EU, but I'm not seeing the EU. I wonder if it works the same way as this, where it does need an MFE. So after a bit of looking around trying to figure out how to get this to function and everything, turns out this thing just takes a long amount of time. So the book in here even says it takes 10,000 EU a tick to function. So maybe if we were able to feed it somehow 10,000 EU a tick, that would work. But in this case, it does seem to be consuming ever so slow. I have it connected to an MV flux converter. Of course, this isn't producing a whole lot, 128 EU. I wonder though, if I was able to hook it up to an HV, if that would be able to send it and make it a little bit faster. But I do have it hooked up to some cables. It's actually receiving a little bit of power from this as well. Probably should disconnect this side. But yeah, unfortunately, it's going to take a long time in order for us to get a single cell, I think. It does say how many ticks and how much EU. It kind of shows here, which looks like it's a little bit different than what the other section was saying. But yeah, it's going to need 10 of them to consume, and it's already consumed 3 of them, I believe. So yeah, I think the only thing left to do would be simply place a hopper onto the top. Keep these cables connected, even though it should be receiving power directly from this. But a hopper is how I'm going to keep it filled with UU matter for right now, and it will fill it up. So I'll just have to keep an eye out on it. This is apparently a very slow process going through this plasma fire. Unfortunately, my lack of IC2 knowledge is definitely showing here, as this is a mod that I'm very unfamiliar with, and if I would have known this, I would have set this up a very long time ago. Now, this may be 100% not necessary, but I do have some HVs connected to this now. Of course, this is connected, I believe, to the MV, but it does seem the HV does work. These are gold, and this machine also is highlighted in gold. I'm assuming that's what means it is a high voltage machine. And so I am sending 512 through this cable, 512 through this cable, and 512 through this cable. And then this is also should be receiving the 128 from the bottom here. It does appear to be going a little bit faster now, the more power I'm sending it. So yes, it does take a little bit of time, and it also does seem like it needs a lot of power. But I'm pretty sure, according to this book, that these glass fibers, the glass cables, they can only transfer... Yeah, they can only deal up to 512 EUs, so that's why I have them separated. And I'm hoping that this handles more than 512 EU, and this isn't actually just some redundancy that I'm doing. When the information is super limited, you gotta just deal with what you got, right? And it's just whatever that book says is what I have to go off of, really. So I straight up blinked for a moment, and look at that. I already have 2 full plasma cells now, which is perfect. That is awesome. And it is, yeah, it is utilizing it. So I was working on some other things and just sort of talking and checking things out while hanging out in the Discord while I was working on this. And so now I should have everything I need. Now, crafting this out, notice that when we go to craft this, it's not necessarily going to work. We have to, I think, hand do this. So we are going to need all of our magnets, and it's going to require 2 in the slots, and then alloy plates. It's going to require 4, I believe. But it doesn't even seem like that craft is going to work. Okay, so do we have to craft this in something special? Maybe a crafting table? To get this to work? Maybe by hand? Also, I was letting these nitro batteries charge up in my inventory, because they're going to need to be at full charge. So yeah, let's try this. Is this going to be something that has to be done by hand? Just to recheck. Let's go ahead. Can I dump them in like this? Okay. It does require 4. And there we go. So it has to be done in a regular crafting table. It doesn't appear like it works in applied energistics. But there's the plasma core. So we pretty much have everything we need now in order to make the next thing, which is our Oblivion shard. And just like that, we have crafted one of the other components of the Allthemodium star. And my goodness, there we go. Now, of course, keep in mind, we are going to be diving back into more of this mod soon. But there we go. That is one of the next ones done. Let's go ahead and apply it to our roundabout here. And if I already have this in place right here, I can go ahead and kind of see where this is going to be at. This looks like it is directly adjacent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. So yes, the exact opposite. And perfect. So we'll go ahead and place that in. And now we have ourselves the Oblivion shard. One step closer to our creative item. Oh my goodness. Now, there is some things that I still want to do before we wrap things up for today's episode. And that is going to be finish off making the awakened unobtainium vibranium alloy block. All we have to do is just simply awaken it. Now, I do believe all that we need to do, because we have this sort of kind of automated, is just simply place in our vibranium blocks, our unobtainium blocks, and then last but not least, we place this in the center, and that is going to give us the awakened form. This is awesome. There we go. And that wasn't too bad. And so we'll rinse and repeat, do the same process again. And there we go. All of this is set up, and as you can see, the essence automatically refill because of the way we set this up. And perfect. We now have the few other ingredients that we're going to need. Now, I don't think these hold like stacks of items, but I do kind of want to place these in. And this should now have finished this off with a pedestal. Apparently we're just going to use one pedestal to represent kind of what this is. And that will just go right here. And it gave us the Master of Alloy, the indestructible alloy sword, which is pretty darn cool, by the way. This thing requires a lot to make, and this does a ton of damage by default. But does it do more than this? Because this does 52 damage, so this kind of makes this look a little weak. But, I mean, I think it's the attack range. That's the same. No, the attack speed is what's really fast. I believe this is, yeah, this is instant, basically. You could just spam click this, and that's what makes that so powerful. But there we go. We have this now in place, and yeah, we're getting very close to having all of them. I think one of the hardest things to craft in this, in my opinion, is the dimensional seed, because this is going to require a lot of stuff. Also, as you can see in here, there's a lot of things in here that you don't see. And we're going to be getting into that, I think, next episode. And we're going to be setting all of these things up because we need to craft the portals, but each one of these portals requires their own specific set of items, whether it's wither skeleton skulls and compressed blocks. And then we also need to make sure that we even have that much compressed material. And we might have to get into, well, some quarry mods for that. So guys, with that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you learned something new. Of course, using the spirit mod, of course, there are hurdles to overcome sometimes, and of course, I try my best to figure out the ways to overcome those. And so, hopefully, I helped you in your journey getting through the spirit mod. And of course, there's going to be more to come, and they're going to be getting very, very close to producing this All the Mod Star, which will ultimately be the end game for this pack as we will receive our trophy. So, guys, if you're excited for that, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video a huge thumbs up. Also, comment down below if you wouldn't mind letting me know what's your thoughts on the Spirit mod, as I know we barely even touched the surface of that mod, but it is a very powerful mob mod for being able to get mob drops and all kinds of cool things. So, what's your thoughts on the crafting process that it introduces? I'd love to hear from you guys. And of course, I think it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to Gorny. Thank you so much for your amazing support, by the way, over on the Discord, becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. Guys, I thank you so very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next episode. And of course, be sure to check out the rest of my videos. I have tons more videos, but all you have to do is check out that playlist and find something in there. There is tons and tons of cool content that you're kind of just missing out on if you've never checked that out. So be sure to do that, and also check out the community page on the YouTube. It is a separate section, and sometimes things get missed and you can't really view it on certain platforms, unfortunately, but a lot of cool content gets posted over there. Also, join the Discord, discord.gg/ChosenArchitect, and join the amazing crew today. Enough promotion. I think it's time to end today's episode, and I hope to see you in the next one. And of course, as always, thanks for watching. Bye.